Star Trek, the ultimate franchise. These are the voyages of 3 veteran Trekkies, Rich, Ian, and Toby. Their ongoing mission? To explore the vast Star Trek universe, to seek out new perspectives and fresh debates, to boldly go where no podcast has gone before. Beyond the final frontier.
Hello and welcome to Beyond the Final Frontier, a Star Trek podcast with me, your host, Rich Matthews, and my fellow intrepid voyagers, Mr. Ian Spelling.
Hey there, everybody.
And Mr. Toby Weidman.
Hello.
This episode is our mid-season review of the Season 4 of Strange New Worlds, which means 5 episodes of Pike & Co.'s adventures in the USS Enterprise, which, quickly to list the titles, I'll butcher the first one, Valles Marineris, aka Dinos in a Predestination Paradox, the Griffin Incident, where Spock decides that he doesn't like his ears, Human Best Friend, the Hangover episode, A Case of Chiaroscuro, with black and white Klingons, and Level 5 Transporter Accident, aka the Level 5 Production Scripting Accident, that is being proven quite controversial online now, which aired only last week for the first time. So, gentlemen, should we do a generalised thought so far, and then we'll go into each episode?
I think we should definitely say spoilers ahead.
Oh, yes.
If you haven't seen these episodes, then we are going to cover stuff that will spoil those episodes, so just bear that in mind.
Major spoilers. We're going to talk past tense.
Yeah, indeed. So, what we'll do is we'll discuss the episodes, and then we'll give a mark out of 10 for each to see where we are, what our state of the union for Strange New Worlds is at this point. I'm happy to start proceedings. Star Trek's always done gimmick episodes. They've always done them. But in the past, it's the problem we've discussed before, which is when there's 26 episodes per season, if you do 6 or 7 gimmick episodes spread out throughout the season, they're just the exception. It feels like at the moment that Strange New Worlds is hell-bent on mainly doing the gimmick episodes without the meat of the main Star Trek episodes. And my issue at the moment is the one from last season, which is just do Star Trek, please. And ironically, that's where, we've had our review of Starfleet Academy. I actually think Starfleet Academy did more Star Trek episodes, not necessarily brilliantly, but they did, than Strange New Worlds has in the first 5. So that's my general.
I tend to agree with you. I will say the following. I like the ambition. The finished products don't quite live up to the ambition.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
And I'll take... Here's the thing. I like big swings. I can't fault the show for taking big swings. But to your point and to the general consensus point, if you have 26 episodes and you take 6 big swings, you could still bat about 250.
Yeah.
If you have 10 and you take 6 big swings and you miss, your batting average is really low. And so that's the issue. Unfortunately, there's good, really good, in fact, a few great moments in some of these gimmicky episodes, to use your phrase, but they just don't hang together as solid episodes unto themselves, nor as Star Trek.
And I think I'm going to surprise everyone by saying
It's your favorite season.
Genuinely enjoyed the season so far. I think it's certainly better than last season. And while I have enjoyed most of the stories, or at least been able to find moments I've enjoyed in those episodes that I'm less keen on, overall, I've liked it. So
Toby, have 3 ghosts come and visit you?
A couple of other things. I think production values and all of that stuff remains incredibly high.
Oh, that's indisputable. I think that
goes unquestioned. Yeah.
I think the guest stars have been universally great.
Yep, also agreed.
And I agree completely with the gimmicky aspect of it, and having them back-to-back, 5 back-to-back gimmick episodes is jarring. It sort of feels like to me that they've they sat down and they went, okay, what genres are we going to do? Let's write an episode for that. And it feels very, very crammed in. And I think you guys mentioned this, but the Star Trek that I tend to like are stories that challenge me a little bit, whether on an intellectual level or an emotional one. And while I found a lot of these episodes entertaining, I don't feel that the episodes have really tapped into those kind of stories. There's some social commentary in there and some character development, but it feels secondary to the gimmick.
I think that's true.
Well, my argument would be they're boldly going there gimmick-wise. They're not boldly going there story-wise.
Yeah, execution-wise.
Right.
Yeah.
And I want, I want my Star Trek along with the entertainment. And again, I can handle a couple of fun, offshoot episodes.
Yeah, some
but
goof is good.
At the end of the day, give me Star Trek.
Yeah.
And I will say that this crazy Muppet Puppet episode had a lot of very important Star Trek and character development in there. And then he kissed the fucking puppet.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll get to that one. We'll save that one. I think just a modifier that about both what you're saying about the swing and all of that, but also the not a gimmick. So I agree that they're picking a genre and they're doing it, but the danger with that is if you do a genre piece, whether it's horror, whatever it is, if you don't subvert something, they become and have a sense of being very predictable in what they're going to be. And that, I think, has held true across all of these, which is they've picked a genre, and that means you know what it's going to be. And the one episode which didn't do that at the end actually did it, subverted it in a really bad way that I think was somewhat damaged the episode.
My thing is other than, I would say, probably two characters, I don't feel like anything's been developed with them.
No.
It feels like the characters are sort of in limbo a little bit, and that's making it harder for the actors to buy into what they're doing, I think. I mean, some of the actors have been almost absent.
Yeah.
I don't know why, but not the actors. The characters have been almost absent from the stories.
Pike is being... feels like he's
Pike
being
and Chapel, the two real... I mean, I'd say even Uhura, she got sort of one episode that has a focus
so
on
far
her.
It feels like the Spock show.
Spock and Lan.
And Lan.
Yeah.
Yeah, those are the two characters where I think they are trying to do something with them.
But we don't know what that agenda might be. It does suggest to me that it's a move towards whatever version follow-up series was often discussed, like, well, let's sideline the people who are going to go.
Yeah, I agree.
Which is interesting. And make one of our main characters potentially the antagonist for season 5. Okay, let's get into the episode. So, season 4 premiere, Valles Marineris. The episode where, spoiler, we find out that all life on Earth exists because of the USS Enterprise. And it also exists just because of a nice piece of genocide on Mars. How lovely. I actually like this episode. This was the one I liked. Because I'm oft quoted and parodied on this very podcast for my focus on big ideas. And while I think it was decently executed but not brilliantly, I did like this idea, and it didn't feel out of keeping with what something Roddenberry might have hatched in the original series or in the movies. It felt certainly of a scope. I mean, I guess the closest on something like Next Gen would be The Chase, where all of life is seeded by one sort of genetic progenitor, a sort of Prometheus in Star Trek. But this one, I liked all of that. What I could have done with that was the dinosaurs. So when you're dealing with the Martians, it always feels weird saying that, with the Martians, the actual Martians, with Saffron Burrows, who's really good. And that whole dynamic, and then the sort of sense of a really sophisticated advanced species existing prior to all of human existence. So arguably even Vulcans and everybody else, we don't know. So I'm not clear on that timeline. That was fascinating in terms of the cycles of life in the Alpha Quadrant and in the universe, and the sort of the scope of what life and technology could have been and has been in the past, and that we're just part of a particular cycle at this point, that it's not just been a linear trajectory of technology across all of the universe, which I think is quite cool. And I liked the sort of ethical twist on the Prime Directive where, well, you weren't honest with us. You didn't tell us when you were from. And I don't think they extrapolated that as well as they could have, but I liked it overall. As I said, I could have done without
La'an punching a raptor. That hilarious moment.
all of the, I'm in a VR, got a VR headset on and a recreation of
Jurassic Park.
Yeah, of Mesozoic Earth, because it looked like that. The amount of I kept wanting to go, put something in the foreground, over and over again. They did ultimately when they got down to to smaller parts, but it was So I didn't like any of that particularly. I didn't like and also that led to too much prefiguring, meaning this is Earth. It was kind of okay, which was all right. So that stuff was fine, not awful, but just fine. But sat alongside something I thought was genuinely interesting. So I came out of this episode quite, okay, this is good. We're back. This is interesting. Good. I'll be intrigued to see where this goes. And I was already interested in what was going on with La'an at that point, in terms of potentially the genetic manipulation that occurred during the previously problematic Vulcan episode, which I've now seen branded by lots of Star Trek commentators as racist, which is interesting. And I don't know, can you be racist about a fictional species? I suppose you probably can.
Absolutely.
Depends on the inference.
Yeah, it's allegorical. Yeah. It was good. I give it a 7 out of 10. This episode.
Wow, that number doesn't match your review, but okay.
It does. The bits I liked, I really liked. So I could 7 out of 10 because I was like, right, okay, Strange New Worlds is back. Great, let's do it. Let's see where we go now. Ian.
Well, let me start with my number. I gave it an 8. I thought it was the best episode so far of the season. I liked the dinosaurs. I am with you that I felt like I was watching fake dinosaurs in the background of actors in front of a screen. I thought Saffron Burrows was absolutely terrific in the role. Her scenes with Pike gave it some emotional depth, particularly in light of us all missing Battelle, right? So I thought that was good. I thought it was important that Pike declines the opportunity for a promotion and specifically wants Una to have it. I thought that was a very nice touch. I thought Chris Fisher, the director, did a really good job of sewing a Frankenstein of an episode together here. On the ship, off the ship, on the planet, close-ups, background, all of that. Dinosaurs. Big swing. I found it less of a gimmick than I expected it to be, especially in hindsight for the next 4 episodes. Because it factored more into the actual story here, in the sense that, it's a Star Trek story. Hey, what do we do by changing history? And so that, yes, the temporal mechanics are a little wonky, but, the simple question of what's about to happen to a civilization and what impact do our actions have is Star Trek for me. So I thought that of the 5, this was the most Star Trek-y, and
completely agree.
And the character development was there for 2 of the main characters that we care about, including quote unquote the series lead, who we know, for various reasons last year had a little less to do than expected because he was raising his family and needed to be there with his wife and kid in real life. Fully respect that. So it was good to see him in episode 1 have important stuff to do. It also sets the stage in a protocol kind of way of him having more action and hands-on this particular season, as well as him kind of getting ready to pass the torch in his own way. So I'm big on this episode. I almost gave it an 8.5, but then I realized I was doing that in comparison to the other 4 episodes.
Yeah, that's actually why I didn't give it an 8, because I did do that. And then I thought, no, reflecting what you said, no, my review is a 7.
Right.
But I did almost give it an 8 because of ranking them all, having seen all 5.
Right. But on its own, I gave it an 8. Tobes?
I gave this a 5 out of 10.
Wow.
As a season opener, it was okay. To turn my catchphrase, it was fine. But for me, it's the most forgettable episode of the season so far. This is the one. If people say, "Oh, what happened in season 4?" I'll remember the others. I won't remember this one. That said, the things that I liked that the opening bit with the horse riding. I thought that was very kind of Kirk Picard-esque. I enjoyed that. I thought, while I wasn't as invested in what was happening on the planet, I thought Una got some good stuff here, showing command, which I liked. The thing I enjoyed the most of the episode was the discussion between Pike and Saffron Burrows' character, and I thought she was really very, very good, actually. I liked the moral arguments that they had.
Yeah.
They put forward, like, both sides. You can understand all of those.
But that's why it's the most Star Trek. That was a proper meaty bit of Star Trek discussion.
Yeah. But I thought, the twist was really obvious. The dinosaur stuff, it wasn't as objectionable as I thought it was when I saw it in the trailer. I was like, oh God, they're going to do some kind of 1 million years BC or some stupid thing like that. And so it wasn't as bad as that, but I wasn't invested in that story. And that aspect of the storyline took up way too much of the episode. It was like, I would have been fine if it had been 5 minutes worth of exploration of the planet. I don't know why they had to land so far away from whatever the thing they had to collect. That like sort of made no sense to me. Was there a reason why they couldn't beam down? I can't remember.
It was.
Was it offline? Was the transport offline or something?
Something was not right with the sensors. And
yeah.
They were paralysed in general a little. That's what she said. You can't do anything to stop us and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, I thought it was okay, but it certainly wasn't my favourite of the season, which we'll get onto.
Interesting, which is probably the next one. So the next episode is the Griffin incident, essentially the ghost ship bottle episode for the season, where the USS
Shining in space, which is what the writer said he wanted to do.
It's just Event Horizon.
Yeah,
I know, but the actual writer of the episode said he wanted to do the Shining in space.
So I'll make my review of this brief. I really didn't like this episode, for a lot of the reasons I said about the general things, which is, as soon as it was clear what it was, I knew where it was going. And currently, this writer's room doesn't come up with enough interesting things in when they're playing with the genre for it to do anything unexpected. It did exactly what I wanted. And so because of that, I found myself a bit bored, going, come on. And Toby and I have had an off-pod conversation about this already. It also did something which was akin to the swearing on Star Trek for me, which was it was too gory. I was like, why? This is cheap horror. Cutting off of fingers, slicing off of ears. Again, in the sort of, Star Trek can be scary, and not all of it should be easy watching for younger viewers, but they should be able to watch it. This?
Won't someone please think of the children? Next, you'll be suing Facebook.
Yeah, maybe. I don't really have much more to say, and this was where what I thought was an interesting La'an development in the premiere became an on-the-nose thing really quickly. And so, in theory, well executed, good piece of genre application in a bottleneck episode where they reused these standing sets. We know why they do that. I think if you looked inside its own timeline, it wouldn't have looked like that, because we know the Enterprise has had a couple of remods since the Griffin went missing, so it's very unlikely the Griffin would look like that. That's a small canon thing. It don't really bother me that much. And the performances were really good. I can't fault that. Ethan Peck in particular, doing so much heavy lifting this season, was great on that level. But as I said, it's a ghost story. It's Event Horizon. It's The Shining. You're just going to do that. And then you're going to add a level of gore, which I think isn't appropriate for Star Trek and is a bit of a lazy way to shock. Okay, 2 out of 10 from me. Ian?
I'm torn on this. I'm torn on this whole season, okay? Again, if this was the standalone episode of a 26-episode season, my review would be higher. I'd be like, okay, again, a big swing.
Can't argue with that.
Incredibly well shot. I mean, whether or not you like the gore was delivered as gore should be in the horror movies that I like. You also have to take into account I'm a massive horror fan, but I hated Event Horizon. So, because it was hokey and cliched and violence for violence sake without a story.
Strong disagree, by the way. But we'll come to that.
Then after Rich and I finish, we'll go straight to the next episode. Name dropping David in here absolutely did nothing for me. It literally just felt like, oh, let's throw some canon in there. But I loved that they used T'Pring the way they did. Oddly enough, guess what? They used T'Pring in a similar fashion as a hook for Spock. We start to get more of Lon's genetic heritage coming into play. So, again, they are dropping breadcrumbs of things to come in these weird standalone episodes.
More loaves than breadcrumbs in this one.
But I will say this, it begs the question of this supernatural in Star Trek. Even the ghost episode of TNG, that stood out specifically because supernatural in Star Trek, is it really supernatural or is there some other cause behind it?
Which there should be.
Well, should there be? Or can you have the supernatural in Star Trek? Why can't you have ghosts in Star Trek?
So you need Geordi and Data talking about what's going on for me.
No, it can't all boil down to science. It's what shit happens. You drop a coin on the floor and it stands up instead of lands on heads or tails.
Strong agree.
I've had that happen. I don't know. I thought they created really cool atmosphere. I thought there was some good character stuff. Now, my biggest problem, Kirk, Lon, Spock, all go down together. You're going to, literally, they're just like, fuck it, let's dive on in. All right, Ian, be careful what you wish for. You want them to boldly go. I don't want all three to boldly go. If shit goes down, somebody's got to be back to run the ship. And I had issues with all of that.
My biggest complaint on that front is that they went down without a tricorder.
Without anything. They left the shuttle empty. I mean, come on. Here's not my own thought. Somebody basically said that this is horror movie logic versus Starfleet logic.
Mm-hmm.
And with that, I completely agree. But here's my question. Is that wrong? Why not do a straight-up horror episode of Star Trek? You're going to hear me on the next 3 episodes as well, going back and forth on things like this, because when we get to the film noir episode, it plays within the boundaries of film noir, as it should. But is film noir Star Trek? Is Star Trek film noir? So I'm a little torn. Again, these are all the big swing concepts that are they Star Trek? And that's where I'm at with that. My review number is a 4, by the way.
That's a really interesting point that you just brought up about following the rules of horror rather than the rules of Star Trek. That is something that's a new concept in terms of what you were just suggesting there. I'm just going to say I love this episode. Big horror fan, no real surprise. I would say it's right up there with probably my favourite Strange New Worlds episodes. I'm just going to say I'm giving this a 9 out of 10.
Holy cow.
I absolutely loved it. I've watched it twice. It's the only one of the series that I've watched twice. I understand Rich's concerns. I think they are valid in terms of the gore specifically. But for someone with my taste in film, and particularly my love for supernatural horror, which is something that I really, that's my favourite aspect of it. This episode was just a total winner.
Was it Star Trek for you?
I didn't care.
That's where I'm at. That's where I'm at.
I was just massively entertained by the episode.
Okay, so what we have is you don't care, you're torn, and I did care. That I don't think it was.
You are correct, Rich. Yeah.
I'm not a huge fan of jump scares. They always feel a bit cheap for me. But I gotta say, this got me a couple of times. Which as a jaded horror fan who's seen a lot of horror, thought that was fab. I thought this was generally creepy, atmospheric. I thought that all the performances were great. I question why Kirk is there, as always, but it should really have been Pike, probably dealing with his fears over like his future.
Oh, for sure.
But that has been covered before. So, and I have to say that I really liked the Kirk brothers' story in this. I loved their interactions. Unlike Ian, I liked the references to their futures, particularly Sam and his family, and that he's going to die horribly, as we see in Operation Annihilate with the rest of his family. Thought that was kind of quite chilling. I thought the reference to David being stabbed and bleeding out in a dark corner of space, I thought I liked that. That really appealed to me. I was more invested in what was happening with those two than Spock and La'an. I liked what was going on with Spock in terms of like his fears and what he was trying to confront. And as Ian said, I think that feeds into another episode later where I feel like they're correcting Spock to get into the original series Spock. And La'an, I agree that aspect was a little bit on the nose, but I'm enjoying what they're doing with her and her fears about turning into a monster. Overall, I have very few complaints about this episode. I really, really liked it. And I'm very intrigued with what Division 12 is.
Oh, I forgot to mention Division 12.
They're
yes.
obviously not going to go back to that, but I that was a little nugget thrown in there that piqued my interest.
It was a little too cleaning lady, the cleaning crew for me, but I get it. I like it.
It's not Mulder and Scully.
Correct.
I'll be very disappointed.
Yeah, it's very X-Files. And Rich, one thing I will disagree with you on was I was not bored. I was not bored by this episode.
This was, for me, the single most mechanical beat, follow beat, there it is, payoff that I've seen Star Trek do in a long time.
No, I disagree completely. And you say I'm a jaded horror fan.
There we go. So, episode 3, Human Best Friend, a.k.a. The Hangover. Only missing Mike Tyson.
Oh, Dude, Where's my car as well?
Dude, where's my starship? Yeah.
Harold and Kumar go to Risa. This was a sort of, we were saying about things being forgettable, Toby. This was fine. I give it 5 out of 10. It was entertaining enough. The comedy was a little too arch. If the maxim of good comedy is don't play it like comedy, then this didn't do that. But overall, I thought Martin Quinn in particular was bloody godsend as drunk Scotty. He was the one who had the right tone all the way through. I thought Ethan Peck's spaced out Spock was funny. As you can see, I'm clearly out of control. What? Oh, it was really nice. Hated the Kirk playing a sort of prank on him. That didn't make any sense. And you couldn't, if you're actually trying to pick that, it doesn't make any sense. But anyway, second point. Didn't really care about what happened. Didn't really care about the plot. Didn't really care how it resolved. It was entertaining enough. But 5 out of 10, middle of the road. Okay. Yeah.
I was giving it a 5, all mostly because I loved hearing Bonnie Tyler in Klingon.
Yeah, that was
Yeah,
good. That was good. Yeah, I agree with that.
But I will say that the episode really pointed in the direction of, hey, let's depend too much on high concept gimmicks. And that right there, is totally emblematic of what we are criticizing here. Was it entertaining? Yes. Was Dave Foley a ball of fun? Yes.
Yeah, he was the best thing in it, apart from Martin Quinn.
Yeah. And we're right up there with Martin Quinn, I would say. Yeah. So I liked a lot of elements of the episode. I found it, whereas I appreciated what they were going for in the Griffin incident, and I thought ultimately the episode was underwhelming and not particularly Star Trek enough for me. I thought this delivered the gimmick in service of character development and story a little bit more. Not a ton more, a little bit more. We got comedy, which I appreciated. But another shore leave episode for our friends here. Did it work?
That's a very good point. Because I remember, actually, you've reminded me, I thought, what do you mean you haven't been on shore leave for ages? I'm pretty sure you have.
Right.
At least in our memory.
But in terms of one thing I really did like was the camaraderie between the characters and the chemistry between the actors. And the fact that we saw some people interacting who don't always interact with each other, I thought was just generally important for the show.
They're still not doing great by Ortegas. I mean, she was good, but she deserves a better story than this.
But you got the sense that the writer said, wouldn't it be funny if we did this?
Exactly. Yes.
And then they went there, and some of it was funnier and more amusing than some of the other stuff in the episode. And I particularly liked the performances. I thought the performances were game to embellish and build on the material.
I should say I found Celia particularly
given.
funny as well, actually. Yeah, that
yes,
Uhura was
she had good time as
yeah.
Uhura. Yeah. and again, I get torn. I love that they're taking the gamble of going there. But was it great Star Trek? No. Is it a great episode unto itself? No. If I had to watch this or Griffin Incident again, which one would I watch? And that's a tough call, which is why I really wanted to give Griffin Incident a 4.5 and this a 4.44. But again, I have to separate the fact that these are like standalone episodes that don't really have a ton of connective tissue other than the actors in some cases. And so here, again, another big swing, super ambitious, gloriously filmed. I love the color scheme, and I thought they did, party stuff with lots of gusto, well directed. But
you're right, the ideas are big swings, but once they've come up with the idea, and I think it's true for definitely 2, 3, and 4, and to some degree 5. They laid out a schematic for that idea, the genre, and then they followed it too rigidly. That's my issue. And that's what makes it not Star Trek, because you need the Star Trek version.
Right. So I was giving this one a 4 as well.
I'm curious if this episode specifically, if this had fallen in a 26 episode season, would you have scored it the same?
Probably. I just think you'd forget it. You'd just be, oh, it's fine. You just wouldn't think it. You wouldn't dwell on it.
If this was the fun episode of the season,
I think I'd still give it 5.
I'd still give it a 4.5 or a 4. Yeah. You know what? I'm going to change Griffin. I'm making these both 4.5. Fuck it. It's our show, damn it. 4.5.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I'd give it a tie.
Do what you like.
I'd give it a tie. And I you'll be surprised by my numbers for the next 2 episodes.
My thoughts on this are some of the comedy worked for me, some of it didn't. I wasn't particularly keen on the Uhura stuff. I didn't really like what was going on with that. I didn't like all the stuff with Pike and his tattoo.
Well acted, but just like, why?
Yeah, I just wasn't into it. But I didn't think it was funny. But I loved Una singing in Klingon. I thought that was great. I loved Chapel going mental while playing bingo. I thought that was very, very amusing. And everything with Spock, I really, really liked. Although I can see it irritating a lot of other people. I found it very, very funny that he saw them as plants and that they visualized that. I can see a lot of people hating that. I found that in terms of silly comedy, that's my kind of silly comedy.
So this is the man with a hangover liking the episode about a hangover.
Yeah. It just tickled my funny bone. But I 100% agree about Kirk. That felt very, very forced. Again, why was he even there? I'm always going to laugh at an alcohol is green joke. That always tickles my fancy. And I was a huge fan of Kids in the Hall back in the day. Mm-hmm. So it was very nice to see Dave Foley as a guest, but I didn't think much of the character. I thought they wanted it to be kind of Q-esque, but I don't think he really had that feeling of tricksiness. And
they've already done that, so...
Yeah. But that's what I don't know, it didn't really fulfill that role to me. I did really like the character building of the friendship between Scotty and Ortegas. I like that they were butting heads, and then because I think it's nice to see that kind of a platonic friendship growing between a man and a woman. I really like that. I thought it was done thoughtfully and kind of realistically. Actually, they were brought together because of this drunkenness and hangover. I loved the Magato thing as well, by the way. I thought that was hilarious.
That was funny. I did like that.
And I'm warming up to Martin Quinn as Scotty. I wasn't convinced by him last season, but I'm starting to like this version of Scotty. I still think they're playing him too much for comedy. It feels like he's the Star Trek V version of Scotty earlier. I think they're actually trying to make him a little bit more...
this Scotty would hit his head on a... Yeah, and kind of does, doesn't he?
Yeah.
I think, in level 5.
Well, he gets. Oh, right, yeah. The one thing that I really, really didn't like is when he threw the only tricorder they have over a ledge and smashed it. And it was just like, I don't think Scotty would have that much disrespect for.
I'm going to slightly disagree with you there. Here, he's so young and still learning that I didn't have as big an issue with it. Still,
He
right now,
loves all tech and engineering and stuff like that.
emotions can overwhelm the protocol.
Overall, it's not an episode I'd revisit in a hurry. It was fine. I'm going to give this a 5.5 out of 10.
Okay. Episode 4, A Case of Chiaroscuro.
I've never heard this term before doing this pod, and now I've heard it twice because you brought it up last season.
When you do film studies, they give you a list of terms like mise en scène, montage, and chiaroscuro is one of them.
Never heard of it. And now it's an episode. I think they're listening to this pod.
Oh, yeah, right. Yeah, absolutely. There's a chance they might listen for Ian, but I don't think you and I are
Give us the official definition of the word filmically.
Filmically, it's the use of shadow, light and shadow. It tends to be thought of as black and white, but it isn't. So if you want a painter who is a sort of prime proponent of chiaroscuro, it would be Caravaggio.
Okay.
So light painting in the dark to bring out characters, to bring out shape and form. So noir, it often gets mentioned with noir because noir has hard, black and white, deep shadow work, which is why it's chiaroscuro. So this one, same criticism as the other two, slightly more than The Hangover in that it adhered too much to film noir at the expense of the Star Trek of it.
Well, specifically Casablanca is what they referencing so much in it.
Yeah, and heavy-handedly, exactly right.
Her even says in all the gin joints, doesn't she? Direct reference.
Yeah. So I would have given it 5 out of 10, like I did Human Best Friend, except it did two things which I really, really stuck for me in my craw, to use an Americanism, which is I didn't like the fact it started in the device. I do think, again, it would have been more interesting for them to have entered it, because it made it feel very tell not show, because they had a log explaining it, which isn't so bad, but it would have been better if you'd seen them pass into it, so that would have justified the log, like we're getting ready to enter a
Did you think there was something wrong with your TV? I did at the beginning.
No.
I thought something had happened to my TV. I had to go to the settings.
Because the thing is, they did it brilliantly, but I could see immediately that it was an aesthetic choice, specifically the way they had a star outside providing cresting to create the hard shadow. But I thought that they did themselves a disservice, because it would have been lovely to see them transition to that. And I think it wouldn't have damaged it. In fact, it would have raised it.
Well, that's what they do at the end, don't they? They transition into the colour.
They do, but in a sort of... And also, but interestingly, in a way that
so they made a different choice to you in terms of they decided to do it at the end because it's the characters, the colour is coming back into their lives because they've experienced something.
Well, I'd say technically not. They don't know, because it doesn't look like they changed the photography. They just bring in colour. That's a different thing.
So my biggest issue with this episode is the black and white. In terms of, to me, it felt like it wasn't shot in true black and white. So you watch something like Spider Noir, you watch that black and white version, it feels like it's been specifically shot for that way, and it makes great use of shade, shadow, blackness. This episode, it just feels like they pressed the button on a computer to desaturate the footage.
Or interestingly...
And so it didn't feel authentic.
Yeah. Or interestingly, they didn't even do what, say, Captain Proton does.
Yeah.
Which is they flatten that image, because the period of time they're doing the black and white things weren't shot with that much depth of field.
Yeah.
So they shoot that in a very flat way. So it feels like the thing they're recreating. So I can see that. And that's kind of what I mean. I think they did light it for black and white. I just don't... But I think we're saying that in a way the same point, which is when they did bring colour in, it looked the same. It was just with colour. And I think that's partly because they've darkened everything so much. We've talked about this before, lots of black shiny floors, lots of black. So that means they have to light with hard light to pull things out. So it's already hard lit show. Modern Star Trek is hard lit, especially compared to the Berman era, when Next Gen deliberately tried to create a coziness to the Enterprise, which was a softening. So when they varied that, it was often very impactful. So the other thing I didn't like was core. I found myself doubting that it was core. And I didn't understand the way he was shown, the way he looked, the way he sounded. Sometimes it sounded like Holocaust, sometimes it didn't. I don't know. And I got a bit thrown, and that felt like a needless... It felt like an Easter egg, not a plot thing. I didn't know why he was there. It didn't make any sense to me other than the fact it was. They said it was him. And that felt cheap, which is a bit disappointing. So because of those two things, a 5 out of 10 becomes a 4 out of 10. And by this point, I'm going, stop flogging these horses. Stop it. Do something more interesting, please. I like to echo your words. Good idea. The most prosaic execution. And not very Star Trek in the way they did it. 4 out of 10. Ian.
I agree and disagree with a bunch of what you just said. My biggest issue with the episode was that I found myself, bored is too strong word, distracted a little bit at times from it. I didn't think the story was quite interesting enough. The doppelganger thing we've seen before. It wasn't particularly done interestingly well here. So the mystery intrigue story here wasn't particularly exciting for me. So the hook for me was the black and white. I will say that I completely disagree with, I guess, kind of both of you on this. I thought the black and white was beautifully done. I liked the shadows. I liked the glare of the water. I liked the long shots of people giving us silhouettes. I actually thought the visual end of the equation was done very well, and that's what kept me turning my head back to the screen, not away from the screen, when I found the story drifting too much for my taste. I like that they had Una, Uhura, and Mbenga as the away team. That's who should be the away team.
Yeah, that made a lot of sense compared to the Griffin.
And I did, I did like the mind scanner coming back into play. That was a well done Easter egg that actually impacted an episode the way it should. So I thought that was kind of cool. Put it this way: fans of the show probably got a little kick out of it. Non-fans of Star Trek history probably said, "Oh, okay." That's a technical device that makes some sense.
It didn't matter. Yeah,
that makes some sense. So that was one where I didn't mind an Easter egg because it was...
That I didn't mind. I should say that. It's Core himself, not
right.
That.
It was germane to the story and it kind of worked. I will also say that the noir was part of the story. It felt Star Trek-y and less gimmicky to me because, let's just put it this way, the gimmick worked here. You could suspend the disbelief enough when they explained why all of a sudden things are black and white. I'm totally with you. I would love to have seen a transition reaction to it. Even the puppet episode, when the malfunction happens, we start to see at least a little bit of their facial reactions to WTF among a bunch of the characters, including the red shirt guy who doesn't even have a line of dialogue. So yes, I would have liked to have seen a transition here for that. But all in all, I thought well acted, great costuming, great cinematography. So oddly enough, I found myself giving this one a solid 6.5. I love that the three of us are going to come up with, I think, a very similar total number as an average, but all for different reasons, which is kind of cool, which is frankly, the purpose of this podcast.
Yeah. So either we needed a transition or they needed to be bolder, which is play the episode without telling us why it's black and white and be there on that planet and slowly bring the people in and then it's revealed. That would have been more interesting. But they didn't do that. They did a hinterland where it's sort of, we don't really trust the audience, but we want to start black and white. But, Tobes.
I like this episode. I didn't love it, but I liked it. Again, I'm a fan of film noir. I kind of enjoyed everything that was going on the planet. I thought it added to those three characters of Una, Uhura, and Mbenga. Some only lightly, some stronger. I lost interest in what was happening on the Enterprise with Lan's hunt for a potential spy. While it was fitting to the genre that they were imitating, I just didn't find that storyline very engaging.
That should have been in colour. The ship stuff should have stayed in colour. That's kind of thing I
maybe.
mean. That should have made no sense.
I liked the cinematography. I liked how it was shot. I just didn't like the grading on the black and white. That's what didn't feel authentic to me. So while the shots felt authentic to the genre, I didn't think the actual black and white was bold enough, strong enough. It's just I'm very much comparing it to Spider Noir, where I thought the black and white was exceptional.
Yeah, I agree with that. Totally.
And here I didn't feel that way. It didn't feel like it was shot for black and white.
Well, full disclosure, I didn't see Spider Noir, so that's interesting that you say that. But I did see Casablanca.
I think it's the same thing as about as I say about they didn't quite grab it. Do you know? And I think, and then if you're going to be film noir, as you say, Tobes, that's what I'm saying. I can imagine, and see if you're on Next Gen or DS9 in that era, that Yoda started you on the planet in the world, and then revealed it, and it would be like, what is this? What am I watching? And then you'd have had Mbenga walk through with the hat on, and that would have been the dropout for the titles. That's what I think. They're again, big swing idea. It's sort of diluted.
On core, I thought Demuro Barnes was great. He actually really impressed me. I'm not massively familiar with his work. I remember really liking him on American Gods. He impressed me enough that I want to actually go and have a look into his work a bit more, because I really enjoyed his performance. And I agree with Ian about the callback in terms of the mind scanner. And I loved that stuff with Uhura. I thought that was really interesting for her character and her development of her character, and being able to, work under real pressure, because she's an ensign. She's young. And I like the little hints again of Mbenga's backstory and how to lie and not be caught and all that kind of stuff. I thought that was really good. I thought Una, her story was agree with the doppelganger. That kind of felt a little bit lazy, but it was sort of essential to the story. I had to go in that direction. But I liked her performance. I thought she showed that she can command, that she can be a leader. And I thought this challenged the whole, as a Starfleet officer, what should she do? And essentially she let a man die and then giving him the remote, but she gave him the choice to do it, so he still had the choice to not report back, and that wouldn't have set things off. So there was a trust in how is this person going to react. I think she ultimately knew that's what was going to happen, but it makes her a little bit more of an interesting character in that she doesn't necessarily follow what I can't imagine Pike would have done that as a choice. So overall, I give this a 7 out of 10. I like this episode quite a bit.
Rock and roll, or rather jazz and blues. So, episode 5, the already highly contested and controversial Level 5 transporter accident. This one, for my score, has a sliding scale. It started, and for a lot of the episode, was 1 score, and then 2 things happened. So this is the Muppet episode. Puppets, they say puppets because they can't say Muppet, but it's done by Jim Henson's workshop. It's clearly Muppets. It's the Muppets. The reason they were called Muppets is because they're puppeted marionettes, essentially, but reversed with that. So, with rods instead of strings. Just for the
How disappointed were you that there were no pigs in this?
Pigs in space! Yes.
Just for the extra reference, if they're going to lean into doing a Muppet episode, let's do that.
Now, I actually was enjoying this episode quite a lot. I realised that when people are asking about it beforehand, I remember the Muppet version of Angel and things like that's been done before, and it occurred to me that a lot of the writers who are on staff now are referring to Theft They Saw, which would have been that era. So this is, in fact, sort of something it's not entirely new as an idea. I thought it didn't quite make sense, but I liked the way they laid out how it happened. And generally speaking, I was slightly indifferent about the puppet versions until we got Pelia. And suddenly that character made more sense than she ever has before. And I thought the Muppet version of Carol Kane was amazing. The hair was really funny. And so I found myself, against all my better judgment, quite enjoying it. I liked the Orions. I liked the fact they weren't malevolent in the sort of, it was kind of workaday for their culture, that this is what they do. And we're just going to do it calmly and exploit the situation, which made sense. The Muppet I felt the most disconnect from was Pike. It didn't seem right. I don't know if that was just the vocal performance, whatever. But so overall, while not awesome, I was kind of, I'm quite, okay, this has surprised me. I'm enjoying this more than I thought I was going to. And then the first big bump happened, which was the needs of the many in the airlock. I mean, I hated it Into Darkness, and this was, oh my God. And then also it sort of showed how much it overplayed the leaning on Spock this season, and Ethan Peck and being asked to do a lot of non-Spock things. And I started to go, this doesn't feel very Spock, which is an irony for where we ended up. Not saying it was brilliant, but I was enjoying it. And then we got to the end. And it committed to me, which is what is a cardinal sin in this kind of allegorical story of the week, serial, non-serialized storytelling. It was just a dream. And I'm like, right, fine. If you're going to do this, and the other gimmick episodes at least didn't do this, own what you choose. Own your choice and make it work. I was appalled that they made it a dream, and it made no sense to me that it was Spock's dream, no matter what was set up with Scotty's puppet, and no matter what stress was on Spock. I even didn't mind them flying around in space, and the fact they made a fairly solid joke about how are we able to talk? It doesn't make any sense. I was like, okay, all right, ha ha ha.
All right, let me start with, I'm giving this a 7. I went with it, and I enjoyed the hell out of it. I laughed multiple times. I was incredibly impressed with the handiwork of most of the puppets, and I loved Ethan Peck's performance with the puppets until we got to the T'Pring kiss, and that has no fault to do with his performance. He tried to sell that as well.
Poor actor, what a gig to be given.
He must have enjoyed the fuck out of it, I'm telling you. And I loved what Rachel Harris did, and I loved Joe Latruglio as the Orions. Now, did we need the Orions in here? I don't know. My issues, like, I was screaming at the screen, like, just kill the puppets, throw them out the airlock. I was literally saying all these things. And then they literally put a hole in one of the puppets and they throw them out of the airlock. They went there. They knew that this was going to just push the envelope, and they pushed all the way. And I love that. Again, if you're going to swing big, swing big. And this one, every time they had the opportunity to pull back, with the exception of the dream, okay, which is a biggie as an issue for me, but every time they dared to go there, they actually pushed all the way through the envelope, which I, as somebody who enjoys over-the-top, slapsticky type of humor, really enjoyed. When Helia gets chopped in half, I was like, oh my God, and then laughed my ass off. And what they did with her hair,
I loved her hair so much.
Carol Kane's voiceover with it was absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, agree.
I watched all of the behind-the-scenes stuff because this is my jam. I grew up with the Muppets. I've interviewed Jim Henson years ago. We have all had the pleasure of interviewing Gates McFadden. We know that she helped choreograph Muppet stuff and Labyrinth, so I appreciated the tech elements in this to the nth degree. I thought that it took, how do I explain this? Episode 4 took a gimmick and made it Star Trek. Episode 5 took Star Trek and made it a gimmick.
Oh, interesting.
And
yeah,
that is an issue, but again, they went there and they stayed there for, if the episode's 52 minutes, they stayed there for 50 minutes of it. I will say that I loved the concept of T'Pring coming back for this, because we got her in human form. He's clearly still has her on his mind. Was it a little jarring to go from he and Alon break up to, let's go back to Pring? Yeah, that was a little too quick. But just in terms of the fact that she's on his mind, I did appreciate all the hijinks elements with her. I loved that, where she kind of...
But that word was used too much, though, right?
It was too on the nose. I get it, but she ultimately ends up, deep in his subconscious, and part of the hijinks, which I thought worked. I thought the visuals were absolutely incredible on this. Spock kissing the puppet is just stupid. It did not work for me. The fact that it's a dream, let me break this down. My issue with the episode, and the only reason it's a 7 for me and not actually higher, by the way, is that so much of the episode shouldn't be happening even in a dream. Mm-hmm. Why are we seeing other characters having conversations, and how is Spock...
Other points of view.
Right.
Yeah.
How and why is Spock seeing this? Does the dream help explain that away? Maybe, but do my dreams involve anybody but me? No, I'm not poking in on other people's conversations in my dream, or if I am, they're about
You're watching.
me.
You're there watching it. You're present. Yeah.
Correct. So I did have a large issue with that as well. But overall, I really, really enjoyed it. I laughed when they were all floating in space. On the other hand, when they're floating in space, are they seeing Spock kiss the puppet? We see them outside his window. Are they seeing him inside his?
But if it's a dream, is that Spock wanting some kind of voyeuristic?
Now, here's a major question for me, which is it a dream at all, or did they go all kind of Wizard of Oz on this to put a spin on the Wizard of Oz, in the sense that maybe they're covering for Spock? T'Pring is in there saying, "Oh, it was a dream. What are you talking about?" Maybe he did experience this, which I thought would be fun. Now, to the Rathacon bit. Again, I was hooked on the episode. I laughed out loud that they dared to go there. Now, I will admit to you guys, I don't know if my laugh was derisive or pure appreciation, but I sat there watching the episode and I laughed. Now, is it a random Easter egg? Does it illuminate the future for the character? Did it happen? Is it too much of an inside joke for fans? I don't know. I am really torn on that. Like, he's articulating philosophy years before he'll sacrifice his own life to the principle. I don't know. In isolation, it works, right? It's a prequel material. We were talking about teasing things to come in the future in our conversation about a couple of the other episodes. But because this is the most important moment in all of Star Trek and all of Star Trek history and all of fandom, and all because we hated when they reversed it in one of the Star Trek movies. Hello? Right? Into Darkness, which we all hated with a passion, that moment, and which really dragged down the movie in a lot of ways. I'm torn on that. But, again, in the moment, I laughed out loud. So, I went with the episode, and I like it for aesthetic reasons, and I like it for personal reasons, because I love my Muppets. And I will add one other quick thing. My late brother and I had absolutely nothing in common. Guess what? We both loved the Muppets, and we both loved Star Trek. So this episode was also personal to me in a deeply unexpected way. And I really, really welcomed and embraced that. So there you go. 7 for me.
I'm just going to echo that, in that when I first saw the promotional picture for this, my heart just sank, and I went, oh no, this is going to be bad. And similarly to Ian, I enjoyed the episode much more than I thought. And
so did I.
My reason for this is that if this had not been a Muppet episode, if there had been no puppets in it, I think I would have enjoyed the story. I liked what was going on with Spock. I liked that kind of the reset button is sort of being pressed on him and like a course correction for that character to bring him. I mentioned this with the Griffin incident. Is bringing him closer to the Spock we know from the original series.
Agreed.
He's explored his human side, specifically after he broke up with T'Pring. And it's very interesting that the 2 episodes where it's bringing him back to sort of where we expect him to be have involved T'Pring for me in terms of the nightmare dream version of her and then the Muppet version here.
Well, they've got to get to a mock time somehow.
Yeah, exactly.
But I think Gina Sandu is fabulous in this role.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
She's really good. Yeah.
And I thought she nailed the voice as well. Of the
Controversially, I think she's better.
Well, she's got more to do. I mean, she's barely in the other one. But the romantic dalliances with humans is done. And I thought the breakup with La'an, long overdue. I don't think they should have ever done that relationship, to be perfectly honest with you.
It was quite a mature handling of it, though, wasn't it? It was not a big drama, which was quite good.
So
Yeah, but he's clearly still hurt.
So I'm right. This is one of my complaints, in that it is too mature.
Oh.
And like, has Star Trek ever done a messy breakup of a relationship where, you know, it's not nice and clean? Where
Well, Chapel and Spock was.
there's
not
a
clean.
sense of betrayal, regret, hurt, jealousy, unable to be in the same room as the other person. I don't think they have. I can't think of one. I mean, I guess everyone's so enlightened in the future that doesn't happen, that it is all just mature and grown up. But yeah, that actually kind of bothered me that they both went, oh, yeah, I'm not interested in having a relationship anymore. Okay, fine. See ya.
I feel like this season is really getting into your psyche, Toes.
Maybe. Okay, so let's come to the puppet in the room. I don't think
You've been sitting on
Yeah,
that joke. I like it. I like it.
the whole
I like it.
Muppet chaos and comedy, don't think it belongs in Star Trek. That was the big thing for me. I just, of all the gimmicky stuff that we've done, that we've talked about before, this is the one that I think doesn't belong there. And contrary to you, while I hate this trope normally, the fact that it's a dream sort of excuses it.
Sort of. I understand that.
It's cowardly.
It is. I'm not arguing that. But, and I would even go so far as the kiss, because it's part of a dream, you do stupid stuff in a dream. And I could see that within the context of dream stuff, if this had not been a dream, I would have thought it was just bloody stupid. Because it's in a dream, I can kind of, okay, well, it's doing stupid stuff in dreams. So I guess I'm having a slightly different take on it from you guys. I really like the Orions. I thought Rachel Harrison, Jolo Truglio, I loved the conversation that he had with Spock when Spock was tied up. I thought all of that was really good. I like the Orions just sort of ignoring the puppets.
Yeah, like
just like
yeah.
this, yeah. But I don't know. I just the if this had been an episode of the Muppets, I would have been fine with it. But because it's in Star Trek, this is the one that bothered me the most. And for that reason, it is my lowest score of the season, which is a 4.5 out of 10.
Oh, that's interesting.
But the thing is I think they came up with a good Star Trek reason for it. There was a continuity of transporter pattern buffers, logic and things based on the use of the puppet and what they were trying to extend it. And we've seen similar things done throughout Star Trek with the transporter or the holodeck or something like that.
Yeah, this just pushed it too far for me.
Yeah,
interesting.
I will add 2 quick points, by the way. I just want to reiterate that what we were talking about is an issue with the black and white episode, the fact that they didn't show the transition. I do want to mention that we did get the transition here, or at least a few seconds of reaction from the various characters as they were being transformed, and immediately after, which I thought was important and cool. The other thing, which is a criticism, is I sat there much of the episode with Pike's voice saying, "Is that Anson Mount?"
Yeah.
I thought that as well. I wondered whether it was someone.
I had to look it up, and I read that apparently he had some issues or felt it was tough to do the voice. Whereas, Carol Kane sounded like Carol Kane to me.
Yeah, but her voice suits a Muppet.
I know.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It was perfect.
Right. She was perfect. Whereas if that is Anson Mount, and I believe it is Anson Mount, it didn't sound like Anson Mount to me.
I don't think La'an sounded like herself either. It was.
I did think La'an sounded like herself. That's interesting. But yeah, the Pike character didn't sound like Pike, and that really threw me for a loop through much of the episode. Anyway.
But I'm going to say one other thing that I did like about this episode was that all the touchscreen stuff, including Pike's new chair, I love the fact that their fingerprints all got erased. They were just useless. They couldn't do anything.
And they only had 4 fingers, which was...
Yeah, and they couldn't communicate electricity, even if it was like an iPad.
They couldn't, the doors weren't opening for them, all that kind
which
of
is
stuff.
also why they couldn't
I thought
die.
that was...
It might have been more interesting if they'd not been so literal in their Muppetization. Like Animal and Kermit and Fozzie, they're all archetypes. And it would have been interesting if the transformation into a puppet had brought out an element.
Agreed.
That made them more distinct. That would have been interesting, and as a missed opportunity, maybe.
Agreed. But again, if we put this in the context of it's Spock's dream, maybe he doesn't care about the rest of the crew. These are the people he deals with. Maybe, possibly,
that's a good
potentially
point.
You could explain that away.
Is that why Pike says needs of the many? You should be visualizing the rest of the crew, you heartless shit.
Right. So, again,
who's the heartless bastard now?
I went with the ride and enjoyed the hell out of this episode. It was my second favorite of the season.
So season averages so far for the first 5 episodes of Strange New Worlds, I'm at a 5. Ian and Toby are around a 6 out of 10. Different set of reactions, and for me, I think it is storytelling. It's the storytelling issues which have been the real bump, and the use of the gimmicks. I'm less of a fan of those in general, it seems, than you guys. So thank you, everyone. That's our feelings on the first half of season 4 of Strange New World. There's another 5 to go, and then a short season 5, isn't it? Is it 5 or 6?
6.
It's not full. It's not a full season. So it'll be very interesting to see where we go. And of course, we'll do a series review of the second half and a series general theorist thoughts once it's all done and dusted down the line. But what do you think? Are we way off mark? Has our spectrum of opinions and feelings reflected your own? Have we made things interesting? Please do rate, review, subscribe, share. We're very interested in growing our podcast community.
Tell your friends to listen, please.
Yeah,
please,
because
please.
As with all podcasts, we live or die on our audience, and we very much hope to continue to grow and expand. So please get us out there, help us out. We really appreciate it. And we do have some potential big guests lined up to participate in the second half of our season. So do stick with us and share. And we'll once we've got those locked in, we'll tease them a little bit to sort of whet the appetite. So beyond that, we have passed the final frontier, and we will see you next episode.
Peace, love, and logic, everybody.
Ta-ra, bit.
Thanks for listening to Beyond the Final Frontier, a Star Trek podcast with Rich Matthews, Ian Spelling and Toby Weidman. If you want to get in contact with us, you can email us on beyondffpod@gmail.com or check us out on social media. You can even join our Patreon at BFF Beyond the Final Frontier. Huge thanks go out to Alex Weidman for the brilliant original music. Please search Alex Weidman Composer on YouTube to hear the full fantastic theme and more. Also thanks goes to award-winning voiceover artist Cissy Jones for our excellent opening monologue. Find out more about her incredible work at cissyjones.com. And of course, last but not least, our brilliant artwork comes from the designer Russell Seal. Discover more of his work on behance.net/Russell Seal.
Thanks again, and see you next episode, Beyond the Final Frontier.